12. An exquisite sadhana for the juncture of the two centuries, Dhyan Dharana, meditation. A unique opportunity for celestial boons. Although the significance of human endeavor cannot be belittled, success becomes doubly assured with the concurrence of a suitable environment. Environment plays a key role in all walks of life. Take for instance the growth of vegetation. The growth of a seed depends on earth. Nevertheless, during the onset of monsoon, seeds get an opportunity to sprout easily and plants grow faster. Flowers blossom round the year, but during spring, Vasant, trees and vegetation are found laden with a more luxurious growth of flowers and newly grown leaves. Health-promoting experiments are more successful during the winter season. Nature wipes and cleans extensive landforms by creating storms during the summer, which it rarely does during the remaining part of the year. Whether it is a boat or a cycle, moving in the direction of wind, it gains more momentum. An expert teacher naturally produces better students. With availability of suitable resources, wisdom and hard work produce miraculous achievements. These are some examples of efficacy of suitable environment, indicating that the importance of favorable external factors in increasing the pace of progress should not be underrated. Take some more examples. The unemployed find it easier to get employment when jobs are announced. Otherwise, they have to wait, in spite of possessing appropriate qualifications. With increase in demand, a producer gains more profit. On the other hand, even after a surplus production, a hard worker incurs loss by selling his product at reduced rates. In the field of sadhana too, though human endeavor has supreme importance, environment and circumstances play a major role in helping or hindering its progress. The credit for success of Hanuman, Angad, Nal, Neel and their companions in the historical war against Ravan rightly goes to the valor of these warriors. Nevertheless, it is to be remembered that had there not been contingencies arising out of abduction of Sita or elimination of oppression of the marauders, these brave men would have been leading an uneventful life like any other of their countrymen. In absence of a suitable opportunity, one feels at a loss to take any action capable of yielding good results. History tells us about the cowherds who received credit for the feat performed by Krishna, who planned to lift Govardhan and asked for their assistance. Otherwise, they had no opportunity to come in limelight. Only during the period of a threat to security of the country, a government distributes those arms to citizens, licenses for which in normal circumstances are very difficult to obtain. It is a tournament which provides the wrestler an opportunity to exhibit his skill and win a trophy. Otherwise, he has to remain contented with his routine practice at home. Unless there are elections, how would popular social workers get an opportunity to become public representatives? The few examples given above are meant to emphasize the significance of opportune moments of time, which when available, should be made use of. Moments of opportunity should never be wasted in lethargy and negligence. Navratri is a specific opportune period, and sadhana and anushtans carried out during which bring in relatively greater success. Taking bath in holy rivers on special occasions, Parv, has the same significance and is believed to bring greater celestial benefits. For upasana, which may be carried out any time during the day, there is no other period more pleasant than early morning. One may have a nap at any time during the day, but deep sleep becomes possible only during the night. All these instances show the significance of opportunities available at particular moments, which prove that suitability of time and environment play significant role in the success of an operation. There are, however, no restrictions imposed in respect of performance of sadhanas of spirituality by anyone at any time. Nevertheless, at times one comes across some such specific opportunity by virtue of which greater advantages can be obtained with much less effort than is otherwise possible with hard endeavor. The benefits accruing on these occasions are called Devi Anudan, celestial gifts of God. When Ramakrishna Paramhans thought of a plan, he found out an appropriate person in Vivekanand for its implementation and transferred to him the required spiritual strength for fulfillment of the desired objective, from his own resources of tap. Similarly, Shivaji was obliged by Samarth Ramdas and Chandragupta by Chanakya. In recent history, Vinoba in India came into limelight only with the active support of Gandhi. In this world we come across many leading a comfortable life by virtue of inheritance of property which would be viewed as a favorable financial environment. Likewise, most of the students obtaining higher education and for being progressive, depend on financial help from guardians. Notwithstanding some exceptions, wherein some rare deserving persons have achieved success in life in spite of discouraging circumstances, there is little doubt that had there not been paucity of resources and adversity of environment, their gains would have been much higher, for which they would have taken relatively lesser time. We are passing through a juncture of 2 centuries, which we may call Yug Sandhi, which is a very significant transitional period in modern human history. Such moments come to pass once in a millennium when the Creator decides to make some significant changes in the world order. The grace of God is felt by the human beings as inspirations and enlightenment in the inner self. In this world His will is manifested as events. However, in order to translate His will into actions, God needs human beings and their endeavor. This is what has been happening earlier in ancient times. Appearing as superhumans, messengers of God and torch-bearers of century, Yug Pravartak, representatives of the Creator have been fulfilling His wishes. The Nirakar Brahma, omnipresent formless God, who is beyond limits of time and space, cannot be confined to a group of persons and like ordinary people take care of the adversities of environment. In this world too, heads of administrative units only plan and direct schemes, and in pursuance of their directives, numerous officers and members of staff undertake various types of activities. It is, however, true that in this process, authorities are delegated and resources provided for by the head of the administration. In their individual capacity, the member of an administrative unit cannot achieve that much, which they are able to do as part of the organization collectively. The efficacy of collective endeavors is well known. Though doctors diagnose and prescribe and apparently the patients are benefited by their services, the entire system of medical treatment in a medical institution is indirectly governed by extraneous assistance in various forms. In absence of arrangements of suitable buildings, implements, drugs and wages, even experienced doctors will feel helpless and would not be able to do much. The analogy also holds true about the soldiers. The credit for valor and victory is given to their own endeavor. Nevertheless, everyone knows that many of their necessities like transportation, uniform, food and civil supplies, arms and armaments are provided by the Ministry of Defense. On his own, Parashuram would not have succeeded in his crusade of global victory. It became possible for him only after he took determined steps involving heavy risks for fulfillment of the will of Shiv. Nal Neel could prepare a bridge on ocean for Ram by floating rocks. Had they though of their own projects like ordinary contractors, they would not have succeeded in this work. A soldier who thinks of attacking his neighbors to take revenge is not permitted to use those armaments which are given to him for the war front for defending the nation. The foregoing examples would show that bestowal of extraordinary benefits in any walk of life is always related to the objectives of effort. Blessings of God have always descended on some extraordinary men as spiritual grants, Adhyatmik Anudan, for the benefit of mankind or during emergencies in human history. From time to time the Gurus have been granting favors to the disciples and the deities to the worshippers in many a way, but at the same time they have been taking care to see that the gainer does not usurp the advantages to serve petty selfish objectives of his own. Once it is understood that divine grace is meant only for celestial objectives, the delusion in which people expect it cheaply for selfish motives in lieu of casual religious practices would disappear, and they would be saved from negative results of such unethical exercises. At this juncture of the centuries, Yug Sandhi, the celestial powers responsible for establishing the New World Order are in search of enlightened souls for divine objectives. They want such persons to be the torch bearers. In this process, while on one hand the will of Almighty is fulfilled, the persons taking part in its implementation get the credit for mustering courage to be the craftsmen of the new golden era, Yug Shilpi. The Pandavas had come to limelight in this very manner. God had agreed to become charioteer of Arjun because he had readily come forward to assist him in the difficult task of structuring of Greater Bharat, the Mahabharat, according to his wishes. Sri Krishna handed over his entire wealth to Sudama only after getting assured of his prudence for efficient management of his vast Gurukul, institution of learning. Had Sudama begged for wealth, he would have got petty favors, and that too given out of pity. Presently, the deity of the century, Yug Devta, has decided to shower such unusual capabilities on mankind which a person could not hope to obtain at some other time for his personal requirements even after hard and prolonged endeavor. Gems from the ocean of Chetna, supra-conscience, are made available to only those who make persistent hard endeavors with yoga, tap, asceticism, research in science of spirituality and acts of service to mankind. But when an emperor, God, thinks of obliging some lucky person, a diamond necklace is obtained without spending a dime. However, such a possibility is always associated with one condition, that the giver should develop some unusual generosity towards the taker. In this context, there is no doubt that such a situation does not arise because of some accidental emotional outburst of the giver nor as a consequence of repeated pleadings by the taker. There must exist some exclusive factor to make the donor so much emotionally involved that he is compelled to confer the favor. These days, the Creator is conferring superior powers of spirituality to the deserving and meritorious candidates. These are being made easily available to those who can give a convincing assurance for their proper utilization. Government gives financial assistance for many activities of social welfare which helps not only the beneficiary but also many more coming in contact with latter. The greatness of Buddha and Gandhi was because of celestial gifts of God which were bestowed only on the precondition that besides self-advancement they were to be used for the welfare of mankind. Narad, a renowned scholar of spirituality in ancient India, was known as Devarshi, Rishi amongst the god-men. He had an exclusive freedom of access to Vishnulok, the abode of God, a metaphorical expression, besides permission, capability, to interact with him at any convenient moment. Such an honor, competence, was not bestowed to any other Rishi. The only reason for this unusual favor of God was that Narad utilized the extraordinary facilities granted by the Almighty freely for educating and advising mankind. Oblivious of his personal aspirations or conveniences, he was always on the move, spreading faith in God and motivating people for idealistic activities. During this Yog Sandhi, from the spiritual center in the Himalayas, such celestial capabilities are being beamed all over the world, receiving an imbibition of which would provide an individual extraordinary power and competence for welfare of mankind as well as for own self. Divine gifts have always had precondition that they were given to only those whose credibility and merit or entitlement, patrata, for proper utilization was ascertained. God-given gifts are meant only for assistance in maintenance of world order and augmentation of idealistic traits in the society. Whoever asks for divine grace for selfish motives has to return empty-handed. For personal necessities, the Creator has provided everyone with easy means of mind and livelihood. Unless one is overcome with superfluous greed of a Ravan and Hiranyaksha, each being has been made self-sufficient in his competence for making arrangements for an appropriate living. These days, the spiritual center located in the Himalayas is transmitting beams of such enlightenment which would make it possible to conjoin personal aspirations with those of humanity as a whole. The following examples would clearly indicate the advantage of associating with God's work. One of the simplest and convenient form of business devoid of any risk is that of commission agents. It is a part of the profit given to the middleman for his efforts of establishing a link between the producer and the consumer. The commission, divine grace, for carrying the celestial gifts of God to the deserving persons is much more than one would need for his normal personal requirements. Even those making minimal efforts in this context are rewarded handsomely. These days the Creator desires to fill each and every mind with zeal for creating a new world order and motivate each human being to work for conjoining mass thinking with idealistic traits. Whoever is prepared to assist in this endeavor and devote time for it is being assured here by the Almighty of all logistics and benefits. Representatives of many business establishments travel, make contact with people and persuade the consumers through advertisement of their products. In this process they earn handsome remunerations in lieu of bare physical labor. The rishis, munis, saints, God-men and others engaged in public service have been doing the same job for God. They have been carrying the message of divinity to the masses. In this way, besides fulfilling the divine objective, they have been helping all and sundry. These servants of humanity have also been personally benefited by raising themselves to the honorable stature of saintlyhood. They earned fame, acquired celestial attributes and had the self-satisfaction of achieving the aim of their life. Today we have similar opportunity and synchronicity. Significance of the present moments of time should be apparent to the prudent ones and they must consider themselves lucky in availing of this easy opportunity. Although achievement of paranormal capabilities through sadhana is a time-tested doctrine, today there is a unique combination of favorable circumstances wherein, while implementing the will of the Creator, not only His grace and strength will be made available, He would also be obliged for this assistance. In this context, those will be the lucky ones, who pledge to spare any fraction of their endeavor, time and resources for establishing the new world order during the Yug Sandhi. They may look forward to be appointed in honorable and responsible positions akin to a bank cashier, wherein they will be entrusted with distribution of large celestial powers from the repository of omnipotent God. The epicenter of celestial powers is located in the North Pole of the Himalayas. It is eternally drawing extra-sensory resources needed for mankind from the limitless repository of God, Brahmi Chetna, pervading the enormous expanse of cosmos. These resources are then being distributed to various components of the earth in accordance with their need. The waste products of these extrasensory elements, after utilization, are being discarded back in the cosmos through the South Pole. All important activities of nature in the world depend on this parent source of extrasensory energy. Just as rains from clouds are responsible for contributing every drop of water found on earth in wells, rivers, rivulets and reservoirs, the total energy inherent in the animate and inanimate objects on earth, which provides them competence to act or react, is derived from its parent sources permeating the cosmos, Brahmi Chetna. The vitality of this planet depends on this very energy. An identical role is played by the epicenter of spirituality, Adhyatmik Dhruv Kendra, situated in the heartland of the Himalayas. The council of rishis, Siddha Purush, living here in astral form, arrange for indenting from the infinite repository of celestial power of vitality, Divya Chetna, of the Supreme God those significant components which are essential for human existence on this earth. Imbibing these components, they systematically distribute them to the various visible and invisible constituents of the world related to humanity, in accordance with their requirements. The headquarters of the above council, which is located in the above-mentioned spiritual center, is known as the heaven on earth, Dharti ka Swarg. Since time immemorial, this area has been the field of operation of the Siddha Purush, men with paranormal capabilities. After the war of Mahabharat, the last journey of Pandavas refers to their expedition of Swargarohan, peak of the Himalayas situated in this very region. Evolved souls, which are representatives of the Supreme Being on this earth, live in this area in astral form. According to the Puranas, ancient scriptures, the Sumeru mountain of this region is itself the divine hill abode of the deities. Ascetics and yogis are found frequently visiting this region to take advantage of the excess quantity of vital energy, pranurja, present here and for performance of higher levels of sadhana. The last expedition taken by the Pandavas was also meant for this purpose. Both historically and geographically, this part of the Himalayas corresponds to the Swarg, heaven, mentioned in the scriptures. As mentioned in ancient legends, Dashrath, Arjun and Narad had been frequently visiting this area for interacting with the deities, divine people. Students of anthropology know that Aryans migrated to Middle Asia through this part of Himalayas. The area where they established their intermediate camp came to be known as Swarg. The leader of the expedition, Indra, settled in this area. Many in Tibet too hold this view. Theosophical Society identifies this region as the abode of the Council of Siddha Purush. They maintain that this area is the focal point of distribution of Brahmandiya Chetna, cosmic energy, to the entire world. Places like Nandanvan and Kailash with Mahashivling, which find mention in ancient legends of Swarg, are situated in this very part of the Himalayas. Notwithstanding various references and hypotheses, experiences and perceptions also confirm that the focal point of the vital energy, Chetna, omnipresent on this earth, lies in this heartland of the Himalayas. That is why this area is known as Devatma Himalaya. Like the North Pole of the Earth, this part of the Himalaya has been known as the magnetic pole of the cosmic energy of spirituality. As mentioned earlier, here the necessary component of Brahmandiya Chetna, cosmic energy, is contacted, drawn, stored and divided and distributed according to the need felt by mankind in all parts of the world. Geographically, the area encompasses the terrain just downstream of Gangotri Gomukh, snout of Gangotri Glacier, around Badrinath and Sumeru. The energy force required for establishing the new world order during the Yug Sandhi is now being transmitted by Pragyavatar, incarnation of absolute wisdom, that is, Gayatri, from this region. Gradually, the intensity of this force is increasing day by day. It is like the heat of rays of the sun, which mildly warm during the sunrise, but gradually and imperceptibly become unbearably hot by midday. This focal point of energy is presently very active. Those possessing capability of extrasensory perception can see here violent eruptions of a giant volcano throwing up flames of celestial energy. This specific activity of Almighty is taking place to provide an easy access to specific capabilities to the deserving person, depending on their entitlement. Here it may again be mentioned that such a celestial energy is made available only for fulfilling divine objectives and is beyond the reach of narrow-minded selfish persons. Human consciousness operates in three levels, physical and astral. They are known as physical, stool and astral, sukshma and karan. Stool governs physical activities, sukshma governs mind, the contemplatory process. Karan is the inner soul. These three components of consciousness are correlatable with Shraddha, Pragya and Nishtha. The wisdom, Vidya, of Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga and Karma Yoga is meant to develop these three attributes. The trinity of Satyam, Shivam and Sundaram also elaborates these very aspects of life. In the evolution of human soul, the three successive stages achieved corresponding to the above three stages are Devta, divine men, Rishi, saints, and Siddha Purush, men with paranormal capabilities. A human being comprises these three forms of existence, each one overlapping the other. The focal points of Karan Sharir is Hriday Chakra, that of Sukshma Sharir, Agya Chakra, and of Sthul Sharir, Nabhi Chakra. Through the medium of spinal column, Kundalini, source of spiritual energy in body, energizes the two chakras, Nabhi Chakra or Mooladhar and Sahasra. In parlance of spirituality, Mooladhar is known as Bhulok, Sahasrar as Brahmalok, and the central path of flowage of spiritual current in the spinal column in between the above two is Devyan. Awakening, activation of Kundalini takes place in this field. Activation of Hriday Chakra results in experiencing supreme bliss, Amrit Anubhuti, that of Agya Chakra in perception of celestial luminescence, Divya Jyoti, and of Mooladhar Nabhi Chakra in generation of Pran Urja, vital force. Each of these three celestial powers has its own characteristics. With the perception of supreme bliss, Amritanubhuti, the devotee is overwhelmed with ambition of celestial attributes of divinity. There is a perception of fulfillment of all desires. There is also feeling of immense pleasure in the supreme bliss wherein the devotee attains a state in which desire of acquisition of objects of physical needs disappears, abstract desires such as name, fame and success vanish, and concurrently one attains absolute peace and develops competence to infuse empathy and celestial inspirations in the surrounding environment and biological kingdoms of the world. Consequently, such individuals come to be known as God-men, Dharti ke Devta, messengers of God, Agradut, incarnations, etc. Those who possess a competent and healthy astral body, Sukshma Sharir, are known as Rishis, saints, Manishis, wise and learned, and Tattvadarshi, philosophers. They have specific capabilities to go to the roots of facts. They are blessed with many paranormal capacities. Intellectually, they exhibit a high level of competence for superhuman achievements. Such persons do not need the help of any worldly object for their research. No help of any equipment or instrumentation was taken by Vyas in his literary creativity, Dhanvantri in his researches on Ayurveda, ancient Indian medical science based on herbal treatment, Dronacharya for his expertise in arms and armaments, and Sushrut in his knowledge of surgery. These saints had made their astral body, Sukshma Sharir, as their laboratory for experiments. Dadichi was a mobile atomic reactor cum radar, and his bones could be used for creating an atomic explosion to destroy the enemy. Talent and speech of rishis have always been implemental in mass teaching and restoration of order in the chaos in human society. They have had the celestial gift of looking into the past, present and future, and with the help of boons and banes enforced discipline and provided support for evolution of mankind. The physical body, stool body, of the being is the abode of Pran Urja, vital life force. Any decrease or increase of latter is reflected in corresponding changes in strength and courage of the person. The physical strength of a person, which appears to be an expression of his flesh and blood, in fact depends on the potency of this element of Pran, vital force or life force, present in him. Adequacy or insufficiency of this Pran Shakti within the person also controls many physical or mental attributes like resistance to diseases, life instinct, agility, radiance, magnetism of personality, competence to influence people, optimism and prudence for surmounting difficulties. Though physical constitution of the person is significant in development of these characteristics, the vital life force plays an important role. In a way, the valor shown by the physically infirm persons like Gandhi and Vinoba was much more than the world-famous wrestlers Sandong, King Kong, Zbyszko and Gama. It would be the limit of impertinence to consider the former as weak persons. Physically, brain is a constituent of human body. It is also known as the 11th sensory organ, Indriya. For a physical activity related to this world, physical competence is required, which is also an attribute of human body. Hence that component of consciousness, Chetna, associated with body which is helpful in human interactions, is known as sagacity and pertains to the field of body functions itself. This field is, however, controlled by nothing else than the power of the vital force, Pran Shakti. Development of various characteristics ranging from capacity of generation of stimuli for processes of procreation, artistic talents, concentration, zest for life, to engrossment in work reflect only the high potency of Pran Chetna in the person. The invisible halo surrounding the body, particularly around the head, detectable only by Kirlian photography, is the physical manifestation of this extrasensory supra-fine element of Pran Shakti. Biologists refer to it as Jivani Shakti, life force. As a matter of fact, it is a kind of current of vitality and like an electrical current produces miraculous results in its own field of activity. This itself is known as Nishtha in parlance of spirituality. Dawning of wisdom, Dhyan, or enlightenment indicates a state of maturity of subliminal consciousness much beyond the control of mind and intellect governing autonomic and voluntary functions of body. It is an advanced form of energy much more potent than that which controls mind and body in the normal course. Such an evolved state of supra-mental faculties is known as pragya. Swadhyaya, studies pertaining to the inner self, satsang, interaction with enlightened persons, chintan and manan, contemplation and deliberations, are the medium through which pragya is developed. Human characteristics like farsightedness, sagacity, self-realization, self-confidence and self-reliance are only resultants of development of pragya in man. Generally, the faculties of conceptualization, discernment, decision-making and sagacity in human interaction are considered components of intellect, buddhi, and sagacious persons are called intelligent. However, the field of spirituality follows an altogether different classification. According to latter, farsightedness or prudence exclusively means the capacity to discriminate between vice and virtue and a tendency to imbibe only propriety. The mysterious levels of mind referred to by the psychologist as subconscious, achetan, or supraconscious, ucha chetan, have been collectively named chit in spiritual parlance. At times pragya is also called chit or chit shakti. Various paranormal phenomena like human capacity for natural television, telepathy, teleaudition, foreknowledge of futurity, thought transference, shaktipat, extrasensory transference of spiritual energy, awakening of serpent power, kundalini in body, shatchakra vedhan, activation of the 6 nuclei of power in body accompanied with paranormal capabilities, and panchkosh jagran, strengthening of the 5 physical and astral bodies of human being, refer only to matters related to the mystic capacities of chit. Pragya is the governess of the potent nuclei of power in the body known as Agya Chakra, Brahmarandhra, Sahasra etc. In development of pragya, little of physical effort and more of sankalpa shakti, determination of planning and steadfastness in action, is required. After the foregoing brief introduction of pran and pragya, one may once more reflect on his own field of faith, astha. One tends to create a world of his own based on concepts and convictions developed about himself, one's opinions and beliefs, one's companions and in relation to attachment with material objects. Formation of sex in the embryonic state depends exclusively on assertion of the supraconscious, Atmavishwas. In the initial stages, the embryo has components of both the sex in equal proportion. The being, soul, chooses that sex to which his attachments in previous life, Purva Sanchatastha, had been accustomed to and it begins to develop accordingly. In normal life too, If a person is able to develop a firm conviction about the opposite sex, it is possible to change sex. Adversity or congeniality of circumstances of life indicate only the influence of his field of faith, astha. Along with the belief in the popular adage, man is maker of his own destiny, a person should also be aware of the mystery of man himself being the creator of his own unique world. The cocoon spun by the silkworm around itself, exoskeletons of gastropods and lamellibranchs, nests of birds and the cobwebs spun by the spiders are some of the examples to show how living beings create their own worlds based on their faith, astha, and live within the confines either weeping and lamenting in misery, or enjoying and making others also happy. If a rare person amongst the humanity musters courage to cast off this self-woven cocoon and begins a new creation for self, there is no doubt that he would be given the credit for creating a new universe. There are numerous examples of men, women and children like Dhruv, Prahlad, Parvati, Sukanya, Ashok, Bhartari, Valmiki, Angulimal, Sur, Kabir and others, who had totally transformed their natural self in this very life and became exemplary persons. The miraculous results obtained through the medium of deities, mantras, yogas and ascetic exercise of Dakshin Margi and Vam Margi sadhanas are hardly because of rituals. Most of the output in such cases is the outcome of emotional involvement, bhav shraddha, only. Blind repetitions of rituals without assimilation of shraddha reduce religious practices to the state of a body without life, a contrivance of no consequence whatsoever. Though ghosts and spirits do exist, their influence and terror on people in general are in a way products of their own inner self. Like shadow persons, Chaya Purush, mentioned earlier, deities too may be made to appear and demonstrate the capacity to reward the sadhak in proportion to his shraddha. The miraculous personal interactions between the stone idol of Kali and Ramakrishna Paramhans was nothing short of miracle. However, the same idol of Dakshineshwar Temple, Calcutta, could not reward any other priest after him. Who else got the joy of Krishna's accompaniment for dances and song than Meera the saintly princess? Dronacharya in person was not as efficacious guru for Kauravas and Pandavas as his earth idol became for Eklavya. Shraddha has the power to create the hallucination of a ghost in the bush. It has much higher level of capabilities than even Nishtha and Pragya. The nucleus of spiritual power in the inner self is the Hriday Chakra situated around the navel. This is from where empathy emanates. Compassion or heartlessness in a human being reflect only good or bad state of the environment around this very chakra. In this region is imbibed an image of self which forms the basis for one's character and personality, Vyaktitva. In other words, this chakra governs the character and personality of a person. Faiths or convictions, astha, give rise to aspirations. Aspirations provide motivations, prerana, for deliberations which in turn induce action constituting the routine of life. This integrated system of faith, aspiration, motivation, deliberation, action is seen as the personality and character of a person which attract like type of people for assistance and create commensurate environment for that person. Comprehensive deliberation on the subject would confirm that the character and personality of a person are structured totally in the institution of astha. Whether he is compelled to live in an environment of heavenly bliss or misery of hell depends on his own astha. In a garden, a butterfly chooses to sit on a flower whereas a fly goes to filth and garbage. Likewise, each person reaps the fruits of one's own choice and character. Greatness or lowliness do not descend from the heavens. It is the grove voluntarily planted and grown in the realm of one's own astha. The choice of growth of Vishvriksha, a tree with poison fruits, or Kalpvriksha, a mythical tree granting all wishes, depends on the inner self of the person. The power of bhavna, sentience, is 1,000,000 times more than that of the faculty of deliberation, which are Shakti. Similarly, Nishtha, Pragya and Shraddha are successively higher levels of development of supramental faculties of the being, and each is finer and more competent than the preceding one. Body is abode of Pran, brain that of Pragya, and heart of Shraddha. Nevertheless, these attributes are not physically related to these organs. They materialize from the invisible extrasensory world. They are like public representatives, who are elected from various constituencies, whereas in the parliament chamber only their seats are allotted. The celestial gifts of Chetna are bestowed on the three body forms of human existence. The rooms and seats to be given to them are referred to as Mooladhar, Nabhi Chakra, the third eye, Agya Chakra, and Hriday Chakra. The activities of Sukshma Sharir, astral body, Sthul Sharir, physical body, and Karan Sharir, body controlling the field of sentience, are governed by these three nuclei of celestial powers. The object of all sadhanas is to activate, develop and purify the above three nuclei in bodies. Irrespective of difference in their form and methodology, the various types of sadhanas are meant for activation and development of one or the other of these nuclei of power. The celestial attributes of character emanate from these centers only, against which anything can be achieved in this world. It has already been explained that for energizing the nuclei of the celestial attributes, each sadhak has to make his own endeavor. The full objective of sadhana is achieved through the fourfold activities of self-purification, self-refinement, practice of yoga and ascetic exercise of devout austerity, tap. These are the foundation stones for erecting the structure of all-round progress in self-evolution and worldly achievements. Today, however, emphasis is being laid on the significance of Yog Sandhi. During this juncture of 2 centuries, enlightened souls may benefit from acquisition of these attributes as special donations from the Creator. It must once again be remembered that these divine gifts are being made available exclusively for welfare of mankind. Unless availed of, they would be forced to go elsewhere to some other person, like visitors to a hotel, who do not get accommodation in a particular establishment, seek it elsewhere.
13. How to earn merit in prevailing environment. For the duration of 2 decades of the Yog Sandhi, juncture of the 2 centuries, between 1991 and 2000 AD, a special transmission of celestial energy is being made from an epicenter of spirituality situated in the Himalayas. Anyone prepared to rise a little above his baseness can conveniently receive the specially transmitted power of God for utilization in self-advancement as well as for welfare of humanity. For this purpose, a beginning is to be made for developing a certain degree of maturity in one's way of thinking. Let there be no delusion that this grace of God will be easily obtainable by taking ritualistic pledges, giving true or false assurances, or by indulging in deliberate deception. During the present Yog Sandhi, the cosmic energy of the Creator, Mahakal, the Supreme Disciplinarian, is engaged in eliminating the chaos and disorder and augmenting virtuous traits amongst the humanity. A glaring example of his recent endeavors of creation can be seen in the activities being carried out under Pragya Abhiyan, crusade for promotion of Pragya or righteous wisdom. Those desirous of participating in revolutions of this magnitude are necessarily required to donate time and resources, Anshdan. There is no escape from the above prerequisites. The merit, Patrata, for this grace of God could only be earned by those who would give same importance to the cause and make the same endeavor for shouldering the responsibilities of re-establishment of a new world order, Navsrejan, as they are giving to looking after their personal needs and to the requirements of the family. Rituals of religious practices are merely superficial means of obtaining divine grace. With latter, there is no possibility of creation of an appropriate environment for success unless one is prepared to earn and prove merit. Endeavors made for self-purification and self-refinement are the only proofs of unwavering faith in spirituality of a person. The process of benefiting from acquisition of threefold celestial transmissions being beamed these days on the auspicious occasion of the Yog Sandhi is very simple. How should one plead to God and what will be the returns, are aspects irrelevant to the issue. The basic question here is that of merit or worthiness, patrata, of the receiver. Is the giver capable of giving? Has the receiver unquestionable credibility, integrity, merit, patrata, and capacity to utilize the divine gift appropriately? These are the two basic questions relevant for any transaction in this world. The same holds true in the world of spirituality. Where the objective of sadhana is acquisition of paranormal powers, even a casual adherence to rituals of worship serves the purpose. The fundamental requirement is development of patrata. A pragmatic sadhak concentrates his energies on contemplations and efforts directed towards the process of self-appraisal and self-purification. It is obviously a difficult task. Disregarding this fundamental aspect, the multitude dreams about miraculous achievements with the help of rituals, whereas a pragmatic approach should involve one's own concrete efforts for progress and success. It is being emphasized again and again that for being worthy of divine grace and establishing a sound foundation for success in the field of spirituality, the sadhak has no alternative to development of his patrata, merit, with the help of efforts for self-purification and self-refinement. It requires a threefold action plan requiring 1. Upasana, 2. Sadhana, and 3. Aradhana. Upasana, that is, sitting near and establishing an ever closer intimate relationship with the omnipresent God who is an ensemble of all high ideals. He may be regarded as the motivator for imbibition of more and more virtues in life. When one makes an effort to develop a feeling of closeness, bhakti bhavna, to God, he tends to become progressively more virtuous, that is, saintly. With progressive incorporation of ideals and development of virtues in life, the credibility of person in society increases, since on account of exclusive choice of propriety, he begins to inspire instantaneous confidence. Charging the inner self with a high intensity of Shraddha brings the sadhak nearer to God, and gradually he becomes one with God, just as fuel becomes fire on coming closer to latter. By sadhana here we mean sadhana of life. It requires fourfold action, namely, self-appraisal, self-purification, self-reformation and self-development. For each of these we are required to make a regular arrangement of swadhyay, study of literature pertaining to inner self, that is, literature on spirituality, satsang, interaction with those evolved in spirituality, chintan, deliberations on self-reformation and self-advancement, and manan, self-appraisal and eradication of undesirable traits, successively. Structuring of time for each day of life is to be carried out on the format of the four self-disciplines of Indriya Sanyam, a conscious effort to exercise self-restraint and discipline the sense organs which should choose only propriety. Arth Sanyam, best utilization of every bit of available resources, that is, appropriate handling of resources for useful purposes. Samay Sanyam, a consistent utilization of every moment of time in fulfillment of some useful purpose, keeping oneself ever busy. There should be scrupulous avoidance of lethargy and waste of time in unproductive ventures. And Vichar Sanyam, imbibition of high thinking, engagement of mind in creative activities, vigilantly safeguarding the mind against immoral, egoistic and destructive thoughts. After a careful appraisal of the life spent so far, one should plan to imbibe a greater degree of excellence for the future and act accordingly. An endeavor should be made to augment cultural excellence in self and make it a habit to incorporate civility, becoming of gentlemen in personal interactions. In short, the foregoing is the basis of Jivan Sadhana, spiritual disciplining of life. After having established a firm conviction in these values, a pledge, sankalp, is taken to make them an inseparable part of nature and habit. This is how the raw human being, who is naturally no better than an animal in behavior, is transmuted into a civilized person. With this endeavor, a being avails of the opportunity to become a super being and ultimately finds communion with the Supreme Being, God, possible. Aradhana means dedication of a major part of one's time, samayadan, and resources, anshdan, for welfare of mankind. As a consequence of this humble benevolent endeavor, one is benefited in three ways. 1. In reciprocation of the advantages taken from the society, he pays back the debt due to the former. 2. The expectations of the Creator are fulfilled. And 3. The path to an all-round progress in life becomes enlightened. The most utilitarian act of benevolence, Paramartha Sadhana, in modern times would be to bring in a revolution in the ways of thinking of mankind as a whole. Vichar Kranti is a revolution of concepts. Augmentation of virtuous traits, Satpravriti Samvardhan, is the only way to reverse currents of degradation. Those interested in performing higher levels of Aradhana are advised to associate themselves in the crusade, Pragya Pravah, under operation for resurrection of human faith in ideals, reformation of mass psychology, and augmentation of virtuous traits. These days an all-pervasive multidimensional approach is being made for restructuring of environment for man, family and society with the help of a special energy field, Yugantariya Chetna, created by the Almighty for this juncture of the centuries. This energy would help the sadhakas in imbibing new ideals with greater ease and augment the existing ones. In this context, one is specially recommended to go through October 1989 issue of Akhand Jyoti, a publication of this mission. Those who are alive to the need of the day and are endeavoring to develop merit, patrata, to obtain divine grace can easily benefit from this energy being beamed from the Himalayas, like the brilliant golden rays of the rising sun. The spiritual accomplishments which are otherwise acquired after prolonged ascetic exercises can these days be made possible very easily by establishing a link with this transmission. The transmission begins an hour before sunrise and continues till sunrise. In the evening it continues from sunset till an hour thereafter. These are the two intervals of time recommended for sadhana. While sitting, for sadhana, face should be towards the Himalayas. In India, at most of the places it will be northwards, but in other countries directions will vary. Hence, the direction in which Himalaya is situated may be found out before taking one's seat for sadhana. Although solitary sadhana is also possible, sadhana in group has been found to be more efficacious. When persons with identical objective and similar bent of mind gather at one place, each one benefits from combined strength. Advantages accruing from group sadhanas benefit the mankind all over the world, besides helping those participating in them. Consequently, one also gets the additional satisfaction of performing a pious deed, apart from strengthening of one's own physical and astral bodies for self-advancements. Though this transmission is available every day for personal sadhana, it is recommended that once in a week on Sundays and Thursdays group sadhanas may be performed. The schedule may be chosen according to the convenience of participants and may be changed later according to the need. For these sessions it is not necessary to take a bath beforehand. Nevertheless, hands, legs and face may be washed and as far as practicable clean clothes may be worn. Least number of clothes should be worn during sadhana. Here it should be remembered that these sessions of meditations are not for practice only. They are specifically meant for receiving the special grace, Anudan, of God available these days. While sitting, the sadhakas should conceptualize imbibition of solar energy within themselves, and this state of mind should be maintained throughout the period of sadhana. Half an hour for sadhana is recommended for practice. A watch may be used to keep time. The three types of transmissions may be conceptualized in rotation for each of the three body forms of self, viz. Physical body, Sthul Sharir, and astral bodies, Sukshma and Karan Sharir. Printed by Yog Nirman Yojana Press, Mathura.